Here's some botched up extra bits. Fries on the side.
What's up? This is the Botching Up Chit Chat show, the kickoff, if you like, to our main podcast. And this week we're talking about AEW's Blood and Guts that happened last week. As always, you have Benito, my good friend Basil.
What have I become now that I've betrayed everyone I've ever loved? I pushed them all away, and I have been a slave to the Judas in my mind. Is there something left of me to save in the wreckage of my life? My life. I'm becoming. Judas in my mind.
Okay. Those lyrics are awful when you say it like that.
I was trying to do it William Shatner style, but it didn't really.
Oh right.
Didn't really play off quite well.
It's much better with the music.
Oh, well, I wanted to read those lyrics to you, Ben, because first time in a very long time that I actually nearly got a lump in my throat from that crowd. Jesus Christ, when they sang that song.
This crowd during this match was hotter than I think WrestleMania.
This was old school territories. This was basically what we're watching for the podcast this week. Wrestle Raw, Capital Combat 1990. This was old heated angles with build-up feuds, old school deathmatch style wrestling in a giant fuck off cage that didn't look like it had been sawed down. It just looked like they'd gotten some chicken wire from somewhere and put it over a ring.
It looked like the boys had just gone round the back and just fixed it up 5 minutes before the show.
I love that stuff. And hot finish. This was great.
So before we talk about the actual match and the show and everything, I want to talk about the history or the backstory going into this match, because I don't think you're aware of it, right?
No, I'm not. But while you mentioned that, I did note that both Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone were basically playing this up as a War Games, because they kept talking about how the first one happened in 1987, but they just didn't mention the name.
Well, so they're not allowed to say War Games. Cody tried to get the trademark for War Games, because it's his dad's match, right?
Yeah.
So he tried to get the name for it right at the beginning of AEW. They wanted this match to be one of their big fixtures, I guess what Hell in the Cell is to WWE. And of course they couldn't get it because WWE owned the name to War Games. Anyway, they're going to go ahead with the match. And it was after the Lights Out match between Moxley and Omega. Vince McMahon said in an interview, or on record, and it got leaked or whatever, that AEW is just a blood and guts company, and it's for people that have no real taste in wrestling. And AEW kind of ran with it that they're the blood and guts alternative now. So the match was set to be the Inner Circle versus the Elite when they were face, with Cody involved as well. But obviously that became the Stadium Stampede match instead because of COVID. This match could never happen. They knew they definitely wanted it in front of a crowd, so instead they did the B-movie thing. And I guess now they've saved it for this.
See, hearing stories like that makes me feel like AEW needs a new chief branding officer. You can't take everything that Vince McMahon says or does and turn it back on him and say, look what we're doing. Because a lot of the time it just feels like you're the ugly stepchild that's been thrown away by the daddy Vince McMahon, and you're just trying to prove to your dad that, look, I can do, look at me, Dad, I'm doing stuff. You know, but anyway, I think that the concept of it, getting back an old school War Games, because I love the NXT ones, but this felt like a real War Games.
This was the match that NXT aren't allowed to put on.
Yeah, and to me, this is War Games. And I read Vince McMahon and his team thinks that this has set back the wrestling industry 20 years.
They're 30 years.
30 years.
And if you count that in your head, that's 1991 when wrestling was making some of the most money it's ever made. Right. So how's that a bad thing, really?
Jim Cornette was talking about how it fell off a cliff halfway through, and that just made me feel like, okay, even if I didn't think so beforehand, this man is just saying contrary opinion, because this is basically what Jim Cornette was a manager around in his prime.
Yeah.
You
He was
can't
involved
fault
in a
this.
couple of them, wasn't he?
Yeah. I think
At least definitely one. I've seen him.
maybe 92 or something like that. But you can't fault this. And I'm sorry to go straight into the match and the finish, but obviously there was a lot of outcry after the event of the aesthetic presentation of how Chris Jericho fell off the cage. Again, I didn't see it. Apart from the fact that the steel ramp was made out of paper, I thought the actual finish, the actual post finish was excellently done. Really, really beautifully done.
And you know what saved it for me? I think it was Santa and Ortiz when they checked up on Jericho. They slammed down on that paper stuff really hard, and as they slammed on it, it actually did sound like metal.
Oh, good. That's a nice little touch.
Yeah, so they helped sell it a little bit in that moment. But I agree with what people are saying, because you can definitely see the cushioning or the air pad or whatever underneath that whatever it was.
But that's fine. We see that stuff all the time. That's been in wrestling now for 15 years. I think the problem with it was WWE always uses this weird substance that nobody quite knows what it is, that looks halfway between 6-inch wood and cardboard paper, but they paint it black. Don't photocopy paper sheets of steel and then just put it on a piece of paper, because that looks awful. They should have just painted the thing black, and nobody would have noticed, and nobody would have told the difference.
WWE are also very clever with their camera angles.
Yeah.
I think maybe they could have blocked the scene a bit better.
Yeah, definitely.
And you wouldn't have noticed it.
But people saying, oh, they could have gone any other way, they could have had any other finish. I thought that was a beautiful finish. In typical AEW fashion, it just didn't work out. But the idea of Inner Circle submitting and giving up to save Jericho from being thrown off the roof, only for MJF to then throw him off the roof once he's got the win, is just diabolical, and I loved it.
Proper supervillain stuff. Well, I don't have a problem with it at all, because if you remember back to the Stadium Stampede match, Kenny Omega does the one-win angel off the balcony, and then very obviously hit a massive crash mat.
Yeah, it's seeing is perceiving with wrestling fans, I think. We wouldn't, as smart marks, like wrestling if we had a problem with the fact that it was fake. We all know it's fake. We all know these bumps are safe, or safe as they can be, and we like that. We want the wrestlers to be safe when they're taking bumps. I think the problem with AEW is that it's starting to get a bad track record for weak finishes. And wrestling fans, I know it sounds stupid, but they don't want it to be telegraphed that it's not real.
Yeah.
And that's the main problem with the finishes recently for these big AEW events.
But like you said, other than the actual the stunt that Jericho did, the actual planned finish was quite amazing. MJF is even more of a megastar than what he was before going forward, surely.
I really think that this has taken him to another level. This has taken him to a main event player. It's like MJF, I think, himself said on Twitter. He used to be seen as, I can't believe he's 25 years old and he's got this much talent. And he's slowly becoming, this guy is the business. You know, because for the last couple of years he's been told that he's the future of the business, or he's gonna make it one day, kid. You got some talent. But I think he's finally showing the world now that he's actually already here, and I really can't see it being too long. Once they get the belt off Kenny, maybe get it on somebody else, where MJF is the AEW World Champion. And
Jericho, you think going forward he should take time away from TV to sell the fact that he fell off the cage?
I would do that. I would do that for a month if they know what's sensible for them. Like anything that's as bad a finish as the death match they had to address. So again, the perfect way to address this would be for Jericho to take some time away. Everybody knows Jericho's getting older, and they could literally just sell it as a guy at that age shouldn't be taking a bump like that.
Yeah.
You know, they could do anything with it. By the way, Jericho's done a 180 for me again since the last time I watched the product. He's so much better as a face. Honestly.
They've done a fantastic job of turning this stable face, haven't they?
Oh, really, really, yeah. Not only was I incredibly impressed with Sammy Guevara's performance in general in this match, but I thought he came across as the star that everybody keeps telling me that he is. Literally every single guy apart from Swagger here worked better as a face, and I really wanted to chant for all of them. You know, I was really behind them.
This was the shot that Santana Ortiz really needed, I think, to keep them relevant and alive.
Again, Santana not only looked jacked in there, but Santana looked like a world star. You know, even Ortiz looked great because Ortiz is so much better when he's got a really serious gimmick match going on. Like when he had the parking lot brawl. Yeah. When they paint their face on special occasions, they're just on another level. And I know that they do it especially for matches that have been hyped for a long time, but I think I would just keep them with that.
Yeah, I think the war paint stuff looks great.
Yeah.
Maybe overkill if they did it all the time. Because Guerrillas of Destiny and New Japan do that. It's
I guess I just
overkill.
like that. I like that vicious side to them. I like that aggressive side to them. Because as we've talked about before, regularly falls into comedy territory, and Santana gets pushed to the back quite a bit. So when they have these big moments, they suddenly come to the forefront and they're serious, and you think, wow, these guys are actually amazing, and you can see why they were so hyped in Impact.
Yeah, they were the biggest thing back then, but not so much now, unfortunately. So the actual match, obviously this was meant to be an old school War Games. The NXT War Games, they don't have a roof on top of their cages, do they? I don't think they do, right? Because I can remember them jumping off the top of it a lot.
Jumped off it.
Yeah, but it's much better with that roof.
Oh yeah, I much prefer it. Maybe newer fans, I guess, would look at this and look at NXT War Games, and they would say, there's not a hell of a lot of difference going on there. But it is, and I think most of it, I was trying to think about what the difference actually is, and I think it's not just the blood and the violence, it's the atmosphere. It feels real. It feels more like a shoot. You've got this dusty old cage, you've got 5 blokes just staring each other down, and there feels like a real drama there that needs to be sorted out. That's why the volumes of blood that were happening in this match, every single guy that bladed or got shoot punched, it just added to the effect, because this felt like a big time gang war, which is what War Games is supposed to be.
Do you think that might be because the old school way of doing it, the WCW way, is they were all out there together, whereas I'm pretty sure in NXT they come out like Royal Rumble style, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have that atmosphere of all the guys shouting and posturing up to each other on the outside.
I think that might be actually a really good point. In NXT War Games, they come down one by one in the entranceway, and it just still feels video game and shiny, doesn't it?
It's a bit slow and plodding. And
I much prefer my wrestling with a little bit of dirt under its fingernails.
You don't want it polished and clean. This
exactly.
Yeah, it's 10 guys that just want to have a scrap.
And that's why I can forgive really bad camera angles. Because I'd rather have really bad camera angles than feel like I'm watching The Truman Show.
And the last point I had about the actual cage is I loved the doors being at end to end.
Yeah, I love that too.
Rather in NXT, obviously, because they all come one by one, they all come through the same door, I'm pretty sure.
Well, they've only got one door on the left side.
And Lethal Lockdown as well. But in TNA, they always came through on the same side. But I love that they would come. I guess it's like American football pitch, you know. You got your end and their end and run across. It was really cool.
This match was obviously well thought out by people that genuinely cared about both the business and the match type. Because they managed to go for ages. They had lots of horrible, violent bits. Like, it was carnage. It was pure carnage. And then I think maybe it was the advert break before the last or something like that. You finally had all 5 guys, and Santana's halfway in the ring getting beaten up, and Jericho just pulls him back, and then you've got this shot of 5 dudes staring each other down before they go at it. And
At either ring. They each had a ring each.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a brilliant shot.
And there are moments, you hear this quite a bit, but a lot of the time it's not actually meaningful. For all of the shit that you sit through, for all of the terrible garbage that you sit through, and you think, why do I watch wrestling? There are moments in wrestling where you think, this is wrestling, this is why I watch it. It gives you that feeling of why you've spent your life watching it in the first place. And this match was one of those moments for me.
That one specific moment as well, I think, will definitely live in the highlight reel of AEW.
I can't see...
That's fantastic.
I can't see them sticking around 1,087,000 people for much longer when they're putting stuff like this on television. This is surely got to boost them by 100,000 or so, 200,000 or so, because this was pay-per-view level quality.
Well, that's the whole point, wasn't it? It was a Dynamite special. They do this every now and then. They put on something midway, something that you wouldn't necessarily pay for, but it's better than a regular show.
I do think they should try and market those better, because I know they have subtitles for them, but I'm not aware of the fact that they're basically pay-per-view TV. And unless you're watching the product or you hear the buzz after the event, I'm not sure that people are actually aware that this is big time. They're treating it like a pay-per-view product.
Yeah, it's whenever they give the show an extra name, it's meant to be something special. But unless you're a hardcore fan, you wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah, I love this match. I gave it like 4.5 stars, I think. Did you watch it with adverts or without? Because I did hear some complaints that with adverts it got kind of stunted and it just didn't feel the same.
Yeah, well, no, I watched the UK version, which means we heard the commentary still go while the Americans were watching adverts.
Uh-huh.
So, I watched the whole match. So, what you were saying at the beginning about Cornette saying it got a bit slow towards the end there, is like, I hate to agree with Cornette, but he's not entirely wrong. There was one moment, kind of when the Inner Circle seemed to have won, and they're beating down everyone else. That kind of went on for a bit too long. Just like a minute or two, a bit too long, and it seemed like they ran out of ideas to do before MGF escaped the cage.
I did see this complaint, but I personally didn't notice it. I think once they tore up the ring and did a power driver onto wood spot, I was like, fucking hell.
Yeah, it was after that moment. After that, it kind of went a bit too long of them just kind of keep it like... It seems like they've definitely won at this point. We're obviously waiting for something to happen for the match to end.
Yeah, maybe gave the event too much time, because that was the whole thing, right? This show, the first hour was taped, and the live audience had to sit and watch it on the giant Titantron, because they didn't want to mess up time for the War Games. Whereas if they had actually just had a normal live show, maybe they would have cut that 2-3 minutes and it would have felt more natural.
Oh, so the Blood and Guts match wasn't taped?
No. So the first half was taped, and then when Kenny comes out in his looking cool in his white suit, and then Miro comes out, that was the start of the live portion of the show. Oh
wow! I thought the entire show was taped this week. That's crazy. Any
final thoughts on Blood and Guts?
Do you think this is going to become a staple match for AEW?
I really hope it does, and I have faith in AEW not to overuse it and oversaturate it like WWE has done with its best gimmick matches.
Well, I got a feeling that the reason MJF won it was so that his team will go up against the Elite down the road.
Oh, you have to have the Elite in this match.
Well, that was the original plan.
I would assume that they had a plan originally to do like 2 of these on TV and then move it to pay-per-view once you've got the audience.
To give it its own pay-per-view.
Yeah, and the Elite is the pay-per-view match.
Yeah, I could see that. But then who would be in the second match?
I don't know. Well, you know what they've done? Done a pretty good job of building MJF's own team up in the last 6 months. Like Pinnacle didn't even exist a couple of months ago, did they?
No.
And I take them as a bona fide stable now. So they'll probably come up with some more. I just don't want it to be like 5 years down the line and they've got the opening match of the Dark Order versus the Jurassic Express, which is now six little people running around. You know, I don't want it to get to Jerry the Lawler and his clowns levels.
So what star rating did you give it?
I gave it a 4.5 star. It seriously excited me.
Sorry, 1 second.
You're looking up Meltzer.
Yeah. I should have had it ready. He gave it 4.5 stars.
me and Meltzer continue to be arch nemesises that give the same ratings.
That agree on everything.
Any thoughts on the rest of this week's Dynamite? Not so much for this podcast, but just generally talking to you. Because I felt like the rest of it kind of fell a bit flat.
Yeah, it was a one-match show, and it was obviously gonna always be that, wasn't it?
Sure. I mean, the one that felt the weirdest to me was the opening match. You had Moxley and... Jesus.
Eddie
One of
Kingston.
my favourite guys. Moxley and Eddie Kingston versus Kenny Omega versus Michael Nawasaka.
Yeah.
But that's a handicap match in which the faces are taking on one heel.
You're not a fan of him, are you, Naka?
It's not that I'm not a fan of him, but he's a jobber.
Yeah.
So what? Like, why would Mox and Kingston want to beat up Kenny Omega single-handedly? Surely they want honor.
I guess so, yeah. I don't know.
I just thought it was weird dynamic.
Yeah, it was. It definitely, even though it's Kenny Omega, it definitely felt like it was a dark match rather than TV, didn't it? Again, I guess
although
because of Naka
Kenny came across as an absolute superstar when he came out later.
Oh,
but
the
again,
promo.
This is another thing that I have to take up a tiny issue with, unless they completely change my mind and divert, and it was just a red herring. Kenny Omega delivered an amazing heel promo, looking great in that white suit. But didn't they kind of have the beginning of the feud before they had the deciding match? Because you got
the deciding match between Orange Cassidy and Pac.
Yeah, because you got Pac and Cassidy having this match to decide who's facing Kenny Omega at Double or Nothing. But then Kenny keeps saying, "Oh, Pac, yeah, no, he'd be great. That would be a great competitor. That would be a great match. But you're nothing." They've already started the feud, so they've kind of, unless they change it and swerve it,
unless they have the match with Pac, but they're going for a longer term story with Orange Cassidy.
Maybe.
And then Orange Cassidy will interfere in the match on the pay per view.
I hope it's something like that, because if they've shot themselves in the foot by just calling out the decider of next week, then that's just stupid.
I don't know. That seems like an AEW thing to do, to have Pac win it, because Pac versus Kenny would be an amazing main event, and then to continue the feud, building Orange Cassidy up to Kenny's level for the pay per view after.
I think you're getting Miro as TNT champion next week.
Oh, I hope so.
I think it's happening.
I mean, that was the best thing he's done on AEW so far, that promo. And it wasn't even a very long promo. It was quite short.
Well, Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page threw Darby Allin down some stairs, right? So Miro will win with distraction by Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky, and then Darby calls out his granddad Sting for another one of those B-movie matches. Tag team.
But, okay, yeah, versus Miro. I'll turn up.
No,
for
not
that.
versus Miro. Miro would just walk away. Darby would be so annoyed with Scorpio Sky.
I see. So get the belt onto Miro, and then they have their own thing over there, and then Miro's just going to be excellent somewhere else.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'm up for that. Then we could have a proper Cody versus Miro feud for the belt.
Oh, goddamn. Do something with Cody, man. What are these... I know he's trying to put himself down. He's like, oh no, I'm not like running this business, but goddamn, act like the superstar that you are.
Yeah.
I don't want to see him face QT Marshall and stuff like this every week. He's an A-lister. He should be at the top of the card.
All All right, before we end this, do you reckon though that Cody booked the Blood and Guts match?
I reckon he had a hand in it. I wouldn't. I'm not sure that he booked it. I reckon that was quite a bit of back and forth between all 10 guys in the actual match.
I think Chris Jericho had a lot of fun with this match. He had a big smile on his face quite a lot of the time.
This is the Jericho I like. Plucky old man baby face, because there's less time for him to do stupid comedy and bring other people down with him. When he's a baby face, all he can do is put heels over, and that's a good thing.
Alright, so we both really enjoyed the match, and I guess we'll hope there's another one in the future. This week on the podcast, we're back on our 90s saga, watching WCW Capital Combat from 1990 with RoboCop. Until then, keep it botched up.
Brother.
Like, share, and subscribe to keep it botched up, brother.